What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Um, I'm not doing a podcast episode today, so that means no podcast episode next week, Thursday. I didn't have a guest plan, and I could have recorded one, but I decided not to because I want to watch the Vikings play the Eagles. So football won out. That's basically most Thursdays. I doubt there will be a game good enough for me not to. But Vikings versus Eagles, I'm locked in, boy. So with that said, I did want to record something. I did want to create some type of content, and I had something on the board to react to. So before the game starts, I'm gonna react to "Is Pride Still Necessary?" Let's dive right into it, my. I just got some Chipotle, bro.
Ben Shapiro, I saw you mention me on the Iced Coffee Hour podcast.
I'd be interested in debating Destiny.
I think we should have a debate over who the next president of the United States should be, and I bet Jubilee would host the debate for us.
This is the 113th episode of Middle Ground, and we want you
Shout out Destiny. Shout out Ben Shapiro. Sounds like fun.
to help us decide what the
Definitely
next
reacting
113
to it,
episodes will be.
100%.
Join our Middle Ground Patreon community and make Middle Ground with us.
The gay community is over-sexualized. Can the agreeers please step forward?
I'm glad some people.
The gay community, because it's based off of our sexual attraction, it has a very easy time going into a space that's all about sex. To me, being gay is a lot more than who I sleep with. It's an experience from when I grew up. The movement used to be about love, but then you go to a pride parade now and you're seeing old men with their genitals out.
I think everybody has a right to express their sexuality
That's a
in
fact.
the ways that they do it.
It's not okay to show genitals to kids. It's weird to me. I think I saw a clip where there's this cop. Someone went up to this cop and this cop said, "Bro, they're just expressing themselves." And the discussion over nudists, right? People who just are nude in public. I don't think there's justification for it, honestly.
So on those grounds, I'm not offended by these old people
Right.
doing what
I
they're
get what
doing.
you do.
But I do agree with that. I think everybody has a right to express their sexuality in the ways.
Everybody has their right to express their sexuality. Let's get something out of the way, shall we? I think this is something that's very important. Define civil rights. Start off with some definitions. The rights of citizens to politically and socially, the rights of citizens to political and social freedom and equality. The personal rights of an individual that, let's look at this. A little bit more, look at Bing AI doing all this stuff for me. Civil liberties and civil rights are two distinct concepts that often used interchangeably. Civil liberties are freedoms that are guaranteed to individuals by the Constitution to protect them from the government tyranny, such as the freedom of speech. Civil rights are legal protections that guarantees individuals equal treatment under the law, right? So the reason why I looked this up, we understand what civil liberties are. We understand what civil rights are. The reason why I looked it up is because he said everybody has the right to, let me not misquote him.
With their genitals out.
I think everybody has a right to express their sexuality in the ways that they do it.
So that's a lie. Everybody does not have the right to express their sexuality as they see fit. The problem with liberals is that they think that anything they want, they can do. And that's just not how society works. You don't have the right to do whatever you want because you're sexually different from heterosexual normative standards. That's not how it works. Even heterosexuals can only do certain things based off their rights that coincide with societal standards. So that is not true. I just wanted to clear that up.
those grounds. I'm not like offended by these old people like doing what they're doing. But
You're being offended means Jack. Beep. Who cares? I don't care if you're offended.
I do agree with that. I think like one of the biggest challenges when I was coming out to my dad, who's Muslim, it was like my sexuality, being gay, isn't just about my sexual lust.
Oh, I've seen a video of his. I think I was he was talking about the LGBTQ community. I think I've seen him too. I just don't know where. Maybe TikTok? I don't know.
Other men. It's more about the spiritual connections, the in-depth things. Like me as a whole complex person, I do think that our experiences and our existence has kind of been trivialized by the over-sexualizations. I don't think it's inherently an evil,
And
but
the over-sexualization is apparent in the apps that we can get. I mean, you can literally have sex on demand, or you could find it in a location wherever you want. Certain businesses are actually keeping doors open because men are having sexual relations in the bathrooms, and that's inappropriate. I mean, we want our privacy too, just like women, and now we can't even have our privacy because a small sect of men ruin it for us.
Yeah, and that was really frustrating too. When I came out the closet, it was like I had this innate pressure, like, oh, I have to download Grindr, I have to be super sexualized, and that's really bad on our youth because although everyone has sex, I get that, but why is it that our community is so hyper-focused on that?
I haven't attended many Pride events because of that reason, and I was able to go to Portugal, and there was this queer retreat, and it was like the first time I felt like safe and secure as a queer person because it wasn't sexual, and I could have these relationships with queer men, but there's no expectation to be sexual.
Yeah, and we see it at the bars. I mean,
Very
it's
fair.
Go
Very
go to a
fair.
gay club. You're
Stop being a freaking degenerate. I'm talking to myself too. But like, I mean, I will only be a degenerate when I like to people in very specific situations. I treat everybody with respect on generally. That's what you should do. Treat everybody with respect.
Grab.
You are.
You're getting touched.
It's an
You're getting
expectation to be
groped.
sexual at the clubs. And I mean, I avoid them at all costs at this point.
Dang, what would Middle Ground be without you, Ragini?
But you know, it's not just me. It's a team effort here.
Cheers to that.
So pretty.
Which is why we want to thank Milanote for sponsoring this episode.
Milanote is a creative project management tool that allows you to share your work.
I don't see your ring. I'm just saying. I can't see your right hand. The ring goes on the left hand though. I don't see a ring. Look at this. I don't see a ring. Just saying. Shout out you. Get your money.
The Wells Fargo Active Cash Card. Earn 2% cash.
See, I don't got YouTube Premium because I don't want to pay for it. So, you know, we're rocking until I could skip the ad. We're pretty deep into it. I should kind of just let it rock for a little bit, right? You know what I'm saying?
I think it's easy to generalize our community as over-sexualized because we're in it, so we're focused on it. But if you look at the straight community, I think they're doing a lot of what we're doing, especially now with more sexual liberation becoming a thing for them and their community. I also think that we have to remember, like, we've only been legal, as in like decriminalized in our sex for 20 years this year. That's crazy. Every year up until 20 years ago, like, there's going to be an explosion of people wanting to embrace their sexual liberation. And then you look at things like the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, like that.
And comparing yourself to straight people is also not really there, right? It's only a small subsection. Like, when people think of straight people, they don't think they all want to have sex. They think of a very specific type of straight person, which is different.
That took away so many people, and it made us afraid to have sex. So this, in my opinion, is a way for us to overcome stuff, and we definitely need to find a balance.
The basis for making us illegal has always been based on sex. Right. And so being openly sexual in any way at all whatsoever is inherently a protest, inherently subversive. I mean, there are sexual things that happen in public that I'm sometimes uncomfortable with, but that doesn't mean that all the things we see and all the things our friends see represent the majority of experiences. A huge portion of LGBTQ people exist in zero public LGBTQ spaces.
I think you draw the line of, you do this in the comfort of your home and you can show affection in public. I don't know if we need to be like indecent in public. I don't know if that would be considered.
How do you define indecent?
I'm in a 20-year relationship, a 20-year monogamous relationship with my husband. And I say husband even though we're not married, but we're not groping each other in public. We can peck, we joke around. When we walk into a room, they know we're together because we give, yes, absolutely. We show extra affection at home in the privacy of our home or in the privacy of friends' homes because we feel comfortable in that.
And you know what that though is your specific preference for public affairs.
I hate when people your specific preference is you, but I could act like that. No, that's not how it works, right? We understand preferences exist, but as I iterated earlier, there are standards that need to be held to be viewed a certain way. The standards of sexual indecency is going to have an interpretation of a over-sexualized nature, right? So the whole thing about it is the gay community over-sexualized? And the infamous term, which I'm not a fan of, but holds truth because it is the reality, is perception is reality. And the way people perceive a lot of things nowadays is through media and social media, not individual interaction, right? So we need to understand that if this is the perception, what do we do next after, we already have it to where the reality is not that? Change the perception. That's what we do. And how do you do that? Condemn and shame the individuals and separate yourselves from those individuals who are toxifying or ruining the image thereof. So important.
Affection. There are a million rom-coms out there with heterosexual people, and a funny thing seen in that movie is straight people having sex in some public space. That's
still not okay. Like, it's a comedy movie. We know it's not okay. Like, when people do these actions, they do it because they know it's not okay. So it's a condemnable action. If you're caught, it's not okay. If you do it, you do it. But doesn't make an okay standard. People need to distinguish these two things. What I do as an individual is not the same as what society should do, generally.
I don't think that's appropriate.
I don't necessarily do either.
I
don't necessarily do either. I'm just saying we're talking about personal preferences.
I know, but I think a lot of times in this, and I don't disagree with what you guys said, but a lot of times what I'll hear is like, well, the straight people do this. And I always grew up saying, I clean my house before I tell somebody else to clean theirs. I am not straight. Right. Therefore, if straight people are doing something wrong and gay people are doing something wrong, I'm going to address the gay people that are doing something wrong.
And not addressing like the people who have been setting the stage for all of us to like follow suit with. Like we live in a heteronormative culture. Like everything that we see is based off of the way that they exist.
The whole idea of over-sexualization and things like that, I think
that's such a lazy way to think. Because you're not actually gonna solve anything. I need to stop pausing because I'm only 5 minutes in. But you're not gonna solve anything if you try to change another group of people. The best way to solve anything is to solve things that you have control over, which is your own group. It's such a late, because you're not going to do anything. You're just going to complain about what they're doing and then use that to justify your actions. That's all is what's going to happen.
The danger in it is that for so long it's been weaponized against us. So we're always kind of like under this magnifying glass of like, oh, well, can I hold hands? Can I kiss this person? Right. And then, I don't think we necessarily have to like mimic quote unquote bad behavior simply because that was what was served to us.
Agreed.
Pride is still necessary.
Hey guys, I'm Don Gaming, and join me in State of Survival. It's a top zombie survival strategy game.
All these ads are such cap. Nobody's playing those fucking games. Excuse my language.
Yeah, I think Pride's necessary, but we need a PR revamp. Yeah, I think we need a rebrand. I take a lot of issues with what I see at Pride parades now, just because, as we've discussed previously, I think that it's a little bit over-sexualized. We're celebrating essentially sex rather than love. And we have people running around riding bikes with their balls out in front of kids. And for me,
where are you seeing this?
Yeah,
what prides are you going to?
New York City and Seattle, both of those had naked people walking the streets.
San
Francisco. One of them was on a bike. I saw the video of him on a bike. I didn't want to.
I would never have my balls out on a bike. That sounds dangerous.
No, me either.
That's dangerous.
Me either. But it's the fact that it is allowed because we have this shield of it's pride. Don't mess with gay people because of our history, which is granted. But people are afraid to look at our culture and say that's not acceptable because if straight people were walking around doing that, it would be a totally different discussion.
I don't think that's the majority of the issue, though. I mean, the reality is that being visible, period, is vital.
Absolutely.
We can be visible without being sexual.
None of us will be alive to see the day when heterosexual people and homosexual people have equal agency in what's allowed and what's not allowed in the public space.
Me personally,
what? What is okay? I'm genuinely curious. What exactly can straight people do that gay people can't in a public space? I need some answers, because this is my issue with victim mentality. Is like, okay, we have to continually strive for it so it can be culturally normal to an extent. I think there are different standards of normal. Sorry, but not sorry. I think the only thing that is normal when it comes to sexual relationships is a male and a female. And that's not because I'm a conservative, but that's because that's the only way we're going to procreate. That's my logic. But regardless, in terms of, anybody dismissing or infringing on your right to find love, what can straight people do that gay people can't? I'm confused.
I actually think Pride is very necessary. I love it. I wouldn't say Pride parades. I feel like you guys are leaning towards like the parades itself. Pride is like liberation,
Just proud of who you are and
yes,
yourself,
and
accepting yourself.
Yeah, accepting yourself and having the people around you in your circle really accept you. It really tells the future generation, like, not only is it okay, but look how far we've come. At 2011, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was abolished. I'm in the military, and had that not been abolished, I would not be able to be, a minority, be openly gay, and still be able to serve my
that's a
country.
good
Yeah,
good
and I
policy.
want to just say thank you for your service before I
you.
move on. And that's a prime example of the Pride that I would love to attend, is someone who highlights service members, gay CEOs, people who are successful, who are contributing to society. Celebrate who you are, love who you are, but the Pride is no longer about being overly promiscuous because we're not allowed to. We don't need to overcorrect to the point that we start to get backlash. We need to correct our PR.
But I still think we're looking at a small group of the people that are at Pride.
But the
'cause
small
you said,
groups, but they speak the loudest.
No, but they don't always. You said you saw 2 people naked. Like from
No,
those
2 separate instances of groups of people who were naked with their
hundreds of
butts out.
thousands. Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Around the world, and
but
like
that
you were
gets
saying,
highlighted.
Looking at specific things with a level.
Yeah, this is my problem with this guy and the other guy. Is, although I agree that this may be the minority, I don't know that for a fact, it's possible. The problem here is you're not denouncing it. You're not making the claim, or you're not making the statement that those things are terrible, we shouldn't do that. Once you make that statement, you can make the next statement saying, but that's not the reality. The reality of the people who care about Pride should be the focus, and the ones that are not degenerates. I need to stop pausing.
Of shame, and then have to look at like where are we shameful within ourselves, and why is that something that we should be ashamed of in general? Like, why is nudity shameful in general?
I agree with you about nudity itself is not sexual. I don't think so. Because I have been into new places and it's not sexual, but when
Yeah, I guess nudity is not inherently sexual. Like, yes, it's not inherently sexual. No, I don't. It's not. I guess it's not inherently sexual, but it shouldn't be an okay standard in public spaces, though.
when
I
you make
stand
it
by
sexual,
that.
that's the problem. It can be indecent exposure at some of these things, and Pride needs to not be complacent and address it.
This should be interesting.
Yes, heels. Come on.
I know. I'm alone on this one. But the reason I'm alone on this one is because I organized one of the most successful prides in my community in 2016. I invited groups that were outside the norm, like the NRA and the local GOP, including the Democrats. Because for me, it was important that this event reach the entire community more than just saying we are a sexual being. We wanted to educate the people. I was told I was never allowed to help them again because how dare I invite a hate group like the NRA when all I wanted to do was arm LGBT people and educate them on how to protect themselves. Because as you guys said, there are those people who would hurt us. I live in a very, very red community. Okay, Mike Garcia is my representative.
Santa Clarita?
Yeah, Santa Clarita. But I dress like this to galas, big government galas, realtor galas. No one has said anything to me. And in fact, all I get is positive affirmation that, hey, you're living your best life. And I say, it's not really necessary because I can walk down my street in heels and braids.
In California.
Yeah, you are so privileged in that way. I'm
In
so happy for you.
Republican-controlled California,
A recent
yes.
poll of Californians found that 35% of Californians feel that homosexuality should be discouraged.
I've done this
so great
in
for
Michigan.
You that you're in an LA
I've done this in Michigan. I've done this in Tennessee. I've done this in Missouri.
And you
I've
walk
done
around
this
like this in all those states.
Yes, I have.
I will say
yes,
that
I have,
technically
and I have had
it's
absolutely
slightly red,
no
it's not
issues.
completely
I've
red.
Although I respect where he's coming from, one thing I will say is that I understand, because this is one claim that I make constantly on my podcast, is that I said we should continuously progress to a better way of life, right? Progress to the utopia that will never happen. I understand why these gay parades, trans parades, BLM parades, whatever, exists, because current society is not perfect in terms of their perception of these things. So we're trying to move towards that as much as we can. So they have a purpose, 100%.
walked into a backwoods bar in the middle of Nashville where it was a double wide that had been converted to a bar, and it was one of those record scratch.
What does your husband look like?
My husband is 6'4" and he's
there's your
a man.
protection.
That's not my protection.
That is
I walk in
bullshit.
that community dressed just like this in these heels, and not only do I not get hate, my husband gets more business.
I'm so happy for you that this is true for you. I really am.
Yeah, totally.
But the reality is that you represent a small minority of LGBTQ people and how they actually experience life in America.
To your sense of freedom, which is so admirable, I think that those things are built on blocks of people who probably did feel that pride was necessary. So it's a beautiful thing that we can have the freedom to,
change our mind.
Admire that.
Yeah. And I think we all want everyone to feel the way that you feel, like you don't need it, but that's just not the case.
My name is Sean, and I am a Patreon member who is asked to read you this next prompt. The LGB should be separated from the TQIA+.
No, this is the interesting question.
Now available, Twisted Tea Light.
You
Twisted Tea Light is the same real brew tea flavor you
Get your
love with
bag.
fewer calories.
Oh, he's hesitating.
Saying they should be separated is not saying that one is, less important.
Yeah,
So I do want to start with that. But I do think that the LGB is very specific, rooted in science. It's very clear as day. You have lesbian, gay, and bi. Main difference between male and female, we all know what that is.
The reason why I stepped forward with hesitation was because I think that there are such lived differences in experiences that we experience. Although collectively, I think that we all know the collective experience of being a sexual deviant. There just is a difference in lived experience that I think is important to talk about and acknowledge, and that's my grounds for agreeing with perhaps a separation.
Mine is very different. To be clear, the science is very solid on identities other than gender assigned at birth being valid. Science is very clear, robust. There is no question that it's legit.
I hate when people say certain things that. Let me hear that again.
Mine is very different. To be clear, the science is very solid on identities other than gender assigned at birth being valid.
Gender dysphoria. You're talking about gender dysphoria. Okay.
Science is very clear, robust. There is no question that it's legit.
Due to gender dysphoria, yeah, correct. Okay.
We, as cisgender people, do a really bad job of standing up for people who aren't cisgender. I call out the fact that cisgender queer people are treated differently than non-cisgender queer people, and until we do better, we don't deserve to have the letters be together.
Much better grounds.
So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I think in general, this conversation can become very hostile because it seems like, I'm like, oh, I don't want you to be a part, like, I don't want you to be my friend, I don't want to be with you, be next to you, be seen with you, and that's not the case. One is an identity, and one is a sexuality. And that's just the simple difference between the two. Eventually, as both groups are fighting for their own personal interests, those are going to not work cohesively. So one is going to be quieter and one is going to get taken advantage of, et cetera. And it's not that we can't support the TQ+.
Right.
I just think that they're two vastly different things.
I think that you oversimplify identity versus sexuality, though, because there are tons of men who identify as straight who have, on occasion, with regularity, once in their life, sex with men, which is
Identify as straight. This is the improper use of the term. Identify as straight. Straight is not an identity. That's a very improper use of the term.
They're bi. I think once with men, sure, experimenting, but I think if there is a guy that's identifying as straight that sometimes dabbles with men,
He might identify as straight, but he's
So
not.
You're bi.
So two things. First of all, there are lots of gay men that we can call gay all day and all night that occasionally have sex with women, and we don't question whether or not they're gay.
They're bi.
But are you entitled?
Yeah, you're just fucking talking. What are you saying? Like, they're bi, exactly. You can't... What? What? What are we talking about?
To titling someone else's.
We are titled-
up?
Don't care.
The title
Don't
is an
care.
objective fact. If
Yeah.
you sleep with men and women, then you are bi.
What if someone that you were
I don't care
talking
what
about
you
doesn't
feel.
agree?
Yeah.
If you don't
That
agree,
doesn't make
that's fine.
sense.
But the fact is, you sleep with men and women, so you're bi.
Flat out.
Can we not
Fact.
talk about who we're having sex with? Just for this problem.
Because a lot of what's in the media today is sensationalized content about, targeting children. Some of it, a lot of it is valid, and some of it is not. But a lot of times, it's gay men that are doing it, and trans people are getting blamed for it when it's really gay men in drag. And because the letters are together, people don't know the difference. And even when I first started coming out, the first thing that somebody said to me was, "Are you going to transition into a woman?" And I'm like, "Wait, what? That has nothing to do with my sexuality. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but because they're together from an outsider's point of view, optically, I think if our goal is to educate the populace on who we are, then we need to make a more clear distinction between LGB and TQ+."
No, I don't disagree. I think it's just important that if we do that, we don't erase any of the validity of the people who are in the group that we're not a part of. And also,
He didn't do that. Okay. Someone wants to be Mr. High Ground. Okay.
what I wonder about in this context is some people are born intersex, so they have sexual.
Very, very. If you want to do the small percentage argument, I can literally, bro. Barely anybody's born intersex. It's not part of the conversation, honestly. You want to bring them up? Okay.
Organs of both genders. Right. How do we identify under the criteria you guys have identified? How would we label them? Because if they have both, and they have sex with only one gender, what are they?
It's such a rare case. I'm not
But
saying
it does
they don't
exist.
I don't think
it's such a fucking rare case, and there is a primary organ. Like, dude is just chatting. He wants to be right. He really wants to be right.
Exception makes the rule.
Yeah, there's people born with 11
I think
fingers.
as human beings, we like to package things that we can develop a palate for. We like to make things more palatable. We like to establish clear-cut rubrics for what is and what isn't a person. I think that's just the natural human
It's
tendency.
how our brain categorizes.
But I think that what separates us from the apes is that we can give credence to these differences and create pockets of space, at least for a discussion, if you don't necessarily agree or whatever.
I don't disagree.
I think it would be an incredible disservice to the transgender community who gave us a lot of the beginning for us to fight for our rights, a separation from them, now that we have our rights. That's just so privileged of us, like Marsha P. Johnson threw that first brick at Stonewall, and because of her.
She didn't throw the first brick.
Or the second or the
She got there
third.
at 2 a.m., first of all, and second of all, Marsha P. Johnson was also a gay man, so when she was fighting for those rights, she was fighting for gay rights because she was gay.
Was she a
I
gay
totally
man because
agree.
of the time that it was?
She didn't transition until long after Stonewall actually happened. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to defend. I'm here to defend the TQ being part of the LGB. Yes, there are some gay men that will overlook what's underneath the belt. That happens. But to say that you have to like them, that's wrong. And I also have a heart for the Q because we can't clearly define the Q. When I was young, it was questioning. Now it's queer. Queer was a slur once upon a time. But I look at those people who were former homosexuals who now live a heterosexual lifestyle. They're never going to be accepted by the straight community, and they're not going to be accepted by our community. So I've put them under the Q umbrella. Those straight people who do have sex with the same gender on occasion, they would fall under that Q. They may not fall under the B. So I have a heart for them because they do exist in our spheres. We just can't put them on a pedestal above any of us because we're all in this together.
I also don't think that they should be divorced because I'm a huge disability advocate. I have a mental health condition. It's very different from someone who uses a wheelchair. We still have a disability.
What you're getting at is that we're a minority.
Thank
They're a
you.
minority. And the more that you take apart those minorities, the harder it is for us to fight for our rights.
The queer community.
Should all minorities work together? I personally, I don't inherently see anything that is wrong with it. Like, if you're a group and you want to advocate for other groups, fine. By default, you're advocating for other groups. That's where it's like a little more touchy, right? Because you have to qualify everything you're doing. If you don't, like, you're gay, but you don't advocate for trans people or for whatever reason. So ultimately, it's tough. It shouldn't be black and white. It definitely should be contextual.
The queer community is already divided. Since the queer community is already divided, I think separating the two is going to make them even more divided and a lot more animosity between queer and T with LGBT.
It's a double-edged sword because in one way it's like, okay, well, we don't want to divide too much because we don't want to lose our united front against heteronormativity or whatever. But then at the same time, if we can't teach the nuances of our various identities to a heteronormative society, then it's like, okay, well, oh, aren't you gay? Aren't you trans? Like, it's all the same thing to them. So I think it's a balance between being all awash and then also noting that we are uniquely made up of all these different experiences. And
But I think if we had a stronger community, like that wouldn't be the case. I'm sorry. No, you're good. Like, if you don't like me because who I am, I know that my brother right here or my sister right there is gonna like me and they're gonna support me, and that's all I need because it's all about my personal experience and what's in my circle. You don't need to be in my circle, but because it's within my own circle that I'm getting all this, you know, belittlement and hatred. Everyone just wants to be accepted. Honestly, like that's the way it's looked at.
And can't we all, to some extent, identify underneath the Q? Your attraction maybe has shifted in some way to different types of men. Like, things are constantly evolving and, in my opinion, fluid. So to kind of force ourselves even into the LGB is to sit within the binary that doesn't help any of us anyways.
But I think all the Q stuff is just a matter of your personality.
Right.
Like, we had so many different labels, and you like this kind of person, then you're this sexuality, when reality just goes back to you're gay, straight, or bi, and then your personality.
But our
And it's
community is
just-
not doing itself any services by categorizing ourselves. Bear, twink.
Yeah,
And then you see it
yeah.
on the apps, on the profiles. Oh, no fats, no femmes, no this, no that. We're already segregating ourselves.
We can still be a community while having a better way of explaining what the differences are between the letters. Because, I mean, even in our conversation today, you guys are talking about a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislation. And as if I was a gay person watching, I would think, oh my gosh, like they're coming for my rights, they're coming for my rights. But a lot of times that legislation has to do with the TQ+. And I'm not saying I agree with it, we don't need to go into the legislation. All I'm saying is that the narrative that gay men are being attacked when other letters are, not giving any merit to the attacks, it is confusing and it's harmful to young gay men and their success because they're force-fed this narrative that they can't.
That's totally fair, but there's been over 560 legislation bills put into like some sort of vote, right? And over 220 of those have been for transgender. That leaves, what, around 300 plus, not just at the TQ?
I think that there's a lot of nuance when it comes to the laws that we have to talk about. But either way, when you say over
I
500
agree. That was a way
LGBTQ plus,
too oversimplification.
the distinction between the two gets lost, and I don't think that it's.
I passed one of those laws. I passed one of those laws in Nebraska that protects children under the age of 18 from receiving gender-affirming care and hormones. Because I've seen.
And you're proud of that.
Yes, I am very proud of that.
I am so ashamed of you.
Because I have friends.
This is why I hate liberals sometimes, bro. They're so annoying. Like, Alec, last video, well, we know who the next one is. Super annoying. I bet if I go in the comment section, I don't even know this guy's name. He looks like a Connor or Conrad. They're so condescending. They just think that they're in the moral. They think they're the most moral people of. What side do I dislike more? Liberals or conservatives? I'm a moderate, by the way. A very unique one, at the very least.
Care and hormones, because I've seen.
And you're proud of that.
Yes, I am very proud of that.
I am so ashamed of you.
Because I have friends who had their first experience with affirming care. Can I finish?
But
can I finish?
We're sitting here
But
with
can I
because
finish?
of stuff.
Jesus Christ, they are both. Oh, you got two Alex. They called a gay person homophobic. What? This man has a whole husband and he's homophobic. Bro, that's what, like, bro, liberals can be so delusional. Jesus Christ.
you felt as a child
I'm sure a lot of us
is so
disagree with him,
sad.
but let him finish because we both have things
We can
to say.
all talk, but like let's let.
Because
each other
when I
finish.
passed this legislation that you say targets LGBT people, I sat next to a young girl who her first experience with this type of care was a double mastectomy at 15. She's now 19, doesn't
And
know
how
if she'll be
common
able
is
to.
that?
It's
It's
actually
not.
very common because
How common? I want a number. How
Can I
common?
finish?
How common?
Can I
This
finish?
is you
though?
passed
You're
the law.
asking me a question.
Fucking trigger ass liberal, bro. I'm getting triggered on your behalf, my guy. This dude is so annoying. He just wants to be morally like higher than you right now. He wants to say, bro, you are a piece of shit. He called him a homophobic, being a homophobic gay person. Like,
In the middle
You
of my
passed a
statement.
law. You passed a law that affects so many kids from feeling like
Yes,
themselves.
I did.
Transgender
I'm proud
kids.
of my law.
That's unfortunate, and I'm ashamed
If
of
that's
you
what it's
because
going to take to get you to
don't
stop
give
so
a
I can
shit
finish
what
my,
you
my
feel.
thought,
Don't
I
give a
appreciate
shit.
that.
Don't give two shits.
All right, you know
So-
what? I'm going to shut up until you finish, but I would really like to say something when you're done.
Sure. The person that I testified with, who their experience was a
The
double
one
mastectomy.
person.
Let him
The
finish,
one
let him finish,
person.
let him finish,
Are you
let him
gonna
finish.
step
person.
in? Like,
Let
can
him
we
finish, let him finish.
People talk.
Okay, that one.
Yeah, he was like, bro, this might get more triggered than the white liberal black conservative. Bro, oh my goodness. I want to look at the comment section already. I want to see who they're flaming.
Person was one person in Nebraska, but I know a plethora of
what
other
state do you live
people.
in?
Hold on, let him finish. Let
I
him
know
finish.
a plethora of other people in other states
The
all over this
generalizations
country
are so easy. I
who
know a
are
plethora of
feeling-
people all over the
who-
Let's
country.
pause.
Can
and
we
then
not
can-
do this?
we'll
Like,
get
what is
it.
the what is
Okay.
what is the? Can we let them talk?
Let's just
You're gonna
pause.
get time to talk.
I don't
It's
appreciate
okay.
that.
I know, I'm furious
You
too,
don't
but
get-
let's
but
finish,
here's
let him
the deal.
finish.
He's
Don't get it.
pissed off more than you, and he's quiet. Just let him. You're gonna get your point out. Just let him.
I'm
talk.
good. Thank you.
You're not
let him
good.
talk.
You're not good. You just keep on chatting.
You say how
just-
many people? You say it's a small subset. But for the people who it affects them for the rest of their lives. A decision they made as a child will affect them for the rest of their lives. This person.
All right, let me take a step back because he's annoying as fuck, bro. He's not willing to have a conversation. He just want to be on a more high ground. He said gender affirming care. I would like to be more specific on the gender affirming care. Surgeries, for sure, illegal. Drugs, I'm not a fan. Personally, based on my moral spectrum, you shouldn't be giving drugs to kids. I'm not a fan. I'm not even that big a fan of like antidepressants and ADHD pills. Personally, my moral system, stop relying on drugs. Affirmation based off like pronouns. I mean, I guess. I'm gonna have to use a bathroom. Give me a second.
Will never feel their sensation
It's crazy how this is such a triggered episode.
on their chest. They don't know if they're going to ever be able to have a child, and they know they will never be able to breastfeed. They will never be a woman in the regular senses. And this is happening more and more because we're conditioning our young people to say, hey, this is okay, you can make these decisions. As a senior in this community, I have to say, wait a second, you guys are kids. Wait till you have your whole lives. Let's talk about this.
Honestly, shame on you for not going after the actual facts. I realize your anecdotal experiences move.
I hate people. Who do they think they are? Shame on you. Who are you? Are you my father? Who are you? Who are you talking to? For me personally, like, I don't really come at it like people may piss me off based off like dumb takes or whatever, but to have this condescension, to have this like superiority complex, that stuff doesn't vibe with me. Because at that point, this is how I would handle it. I would go like, wait. I don't know who you're talking to. If you are emotional, if you're angry, if you're disappointed, keep that shit to yourself. All right? You're not superior to me. You're not my parent. You're not my brother. You're not even my friend. So I don't care how you feel. Just if you disagree, let's have a conversation. But as terms of your feelings about me, I don't care. So you don't need to tell me. And I don't care. So that's probably how I would handle it. That shit's so annoying.
You, and I respect and appreciate that. But let's be
No, you
perfectly
don't.
clear. The most permanent thing a kid can go through is puberty, first of all. So when you...
So?
When you deny a kid the opportunity to pause puberty, we're just talking, first of all, talking about puberty blockers.
Which straight kids do all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yes, since the 80s.
What?
Kids have been prescribed puberty blockers for a variety of reasons.
Those are specific medical conditions. That's not, no, that's such a no, not the same thing. No.
And the law you passed prevents that. So you steal from kids who would like to.
The law he passed stops gender affirming care. We're just lying. We're just lying.
Be able
All
to
right,
pause
cool.
the ability to further. Fewer than 3% of people who do any kind of transition regret it and go back. Fewer than 3%. Finally, I want to make this very clear. I'm not done. You were so mean to everybody else who want to talk to you. My turn.
Get NFL Sunday.
So mean to everybody else. It's just you and the other guy that's interrupting him. The
Ticket and
there
watch
might be
your
other
favorite
stuff.
NFL
They cut
teams
stuff.
out of market Sunday
Like,
games
Jesus.
live.
There has been really robust standards of care laid out by all the leading medical associations that has been in existence for a long time, that is science-based.
Not 100% proven, backed up, but also other countries also don't agree with certain gender affirming care to kids because the evidence is inconclusive. Better term.
About guidelines for these things. But to be clear, the guidelines are very specific about this is supposed to be the parent's decision with their kid, with their medical provider. What you did was rob.
I'm beginning, bro. I'm pausing a lot. This guy's maybe if I just skip it, I'll be less annoyed.
You've decided for them, and shame on you for it.
I think we all can agree, though, that even though he's passed legislation, over 18, you don't care what they do.
I don't care what they do.
You're just more so protecting the kids.
He's protecting
that
kids
are
he doesn't
going
have.
His laws more so protecting those kids that are just tomboys, tomgirls, that are just they're being force-fed this idea like, oh, I'm gay, maybe I'm a girl, and then like they're just like pink. They like are more feminine and it's like, oh, actually transition. And
I don't think it's that simple.
And
I just hate that this is such an absolutist discussion on both sides because it's like you guys are like, no, there's nothing. No, don't interrupt me.
I'm not being absolutist.
I'm not being absolutist either.
Okay, but I
Please
just
don't put
don't
words
think.
in my mouth.
Okay,
I'm disappointed that someone
Can you let me
is
talk,
proud
please?
to sit
Can you
here
let me
and
talk?
pass a law that harms children
I got
when
it.
we know that our
we know your
community
point. We got it. We know your
is
point.
so harmed already.
All I'm saying is that your guys are not making space for the people who have gone through this process and regret it. I personally know someone in the same situation that you were in, and I'm not sitting here arguing for either side because I think this is a very nuanced discussion. It used to be a 2-year process. Now it's 6 months. Those things are changing because the capital and the motive behind it is now, which I'm sure that you guys on this side are against capitalistic, healthcare. That's pushing it. And those guidelines, yes. There's a lot of money to be made in gender affirming care.
A lot of money to the doctors who are
1.6 million per child that gets on it. That's throughout their lifetime. That's how much that
There are
pharma
so
makes
many
from
other
it.
things that kids get that make people more money.
I understand that, but you're not leaving
Oh my god, shout out to Clarkson, bro, because like
any
they're
room
not
for
here
nuance
to
in this
engage. They're here to be
discussion.
Actually, I would argue that you guys aren't leaving room for nuance because you make a decision.
I never said a statement.
Well, okay,
on
I
it.
apologize. And for those of you that I have been mean to, I'm sorry. I love and respect all of you as people.
No, you don't. Stop. You're
Nuance
lying.
is valuable.
That's a
and
lie.
That's why we
100%.
leave it up to the parents and the medical professionals and the individuals.
We
who
don't.
make these decisions.
This is a lie too. I'm sorry. I gotta talk about this. I'm sorry. I've been thinking about it continuously about the role of parents in society, and in reality, parents don't make these decisions. Like, if we're being completely honest, parents do not make final decisions on kids all the time. We know there are standards of parenting that exist in our society, that if parents go past that, they lose their children. We know those things exist. We know that there are medical conditions that if a parent denies, they could potentially get their children taken away. There are so many standards based off of parenting that, and it's unfortunate because I want it to be this way, but I'm not too idealistic. So it has to be a nuanced conversation based off each and every topic. But parents in general, do not have the capability to know if this is the best thing for their kid. I'm sorry to say, but it is the truth because they're just things that parents don't know. They're going based off feeling, and they're going based off very selective information that they have been given. Now, With that said, parents should generally have the most power and decision on what's going on with their kids, but every topic we talk about should be much more nuanced than, oh, parent, they should have autonomy. It shouldn't be that simple. I'm sorry to say, but after I think about like all the decisions and situations that parents are under where they fail the child, you just can't say that. That's just not a good argument. It's just not.
Decisions. There are people who get hair plugs and regret it. There are people who get nose jobs and regret it. There is no such thing.
we don't
There's
give
no,
hair
I'm not-
plugs and
there is
nose
no-
jobs to kids.
there-
But kids,
no,
kids can get
the
nose
point is-
jobs,
Okay,
can get
pause.
breast jobs. Of course, kids are getting this all the time.
Oh, he's done.
No,
she's
they're
waiting
not.
on us.
Sorry,
It's not
it
okay.
sounds like we're not really going to find a middle ground between some of you.
We will have to hug.
But
later.
can I actually sort of like wrap it up into a middle ground moment?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think this is exactly going back to the point of why there is a separation, because it's a very lived, different experience than just being a cisgendered gay man. That was the whole point of the prompt.
This is everyone's opinion, and no matter like how frustrating it can be, going and attacking people, like it was just a lot. If that was me, like I would be so mad and I would just go off. So I commend you for really like holding your composure.
And I just want to apologize because that's absolutely right. And I broke my own rule in being fired up in the things I said to you, and I'm sorry. That's not.
I'm glad you apologize. He's not
And
going
I
to
ultimately
apologize.
do side with my liberal brothers that I don't agree with the legislation, but
it's not malicious.
I see where you're coming from, and I
respect you.
That exists, and people that live here.
I respect you for apologizing. The other guy with the great hair, not
They
gonna
do.
apologize.
They have that, but I do disagree with legislation. But I don't.
He's a
necessarily want to
hater.
personally attack you.
You're not the worst one.
Drag
You are the
shows
worst one.
are
The
too
best looking
sexual
one is the
for
worst one.
minors.
And I'm drag shows are too sexual for minors.
I think it's important to not put a blanket statement over everything.
I was just gonna say that.
Because I know already when they step forward that we're gonna get the Miss Doubtfire example, and then it's gonna be like, oh, well, why is that okay for kids and drag is not? Love a good drag show. I frequent them all the time. Most of them are not appropriate for children. Most of them, not all, but most of them. There are instances that are circulating on social media that represent a small minority of drag shows where kids are present and then it's over-sexualized, people pleasuring themselves, wearing outfits that are representative of genitalia. For that reason, I would say that drag typically is not appropriate for children. Do I think it needs to be legislated? No, because I don't trust the government to legislate it responsibly, but I do trust parents to use their better judgment and know that when something is typically sexual, it most likely will be, so just don't take your kids there.
Yeah. And I disagree with when there were folks trying to ban drag. You can't do that. We have the First Amendment for free expression. I think drag should be able to be celebrated and just kind of dress however you want. I think it is good, I think it's great, but then sometimes there are instances where it's not, and like we have to talk about that rather than being ban drag or no, it's completely safe. I think we need to have that middle ground conversation on what that means.
As a child who wore my sister's clothes, I wore my mom's makeup, I put on their heels, I did all the things, I just explored my, who I was. Feeling comfortable expressing yourself and being around drag could be like for a kid like me, if I saw that it was okay to dress up and nobody was like shaming me, maybe that could be helpful, but that doesn't change the fact that the majority of drag shows that we see today are sexualized.
We have to
the
even
jokes,
start with
yeah.
drag as where its origin comes from. Here it happens mostly in bars. That's where these queens are getting their training. I myself, in my time, have helped a drag queen organize a show that was family friendly.
Man,
and
this
I use the
guy's
quotations
been
because she
around.
actually took it out of a bar. She's like, we can't make something family friendly and still produce it in a place where they serve alcohol. So she actually ended up renting a theater, asking people to pay for tickets, and she put on a produced show where they came in from backstage and they would come on stage like you would expect to see a Broadway show. And she made sure that she told anybody that was gonna come in and perform, you don't grab your breast, you don't grab your crotch, you don't shake, you don't do, we have to make sure that it has to be available and consumable for the general public, because we don't know who's gonna be walking through our doors, and we have a responsibility and a duty to make sure that we don't confuse children, we don't upset people, and if we want this show to be a success, we have to make it palatable for as many people as possible.
Okay. Okay. Well, sorry.
We don't say the same thing about pop stars. It's literally the same thing, and I think that it's hyper.
This motherfucker Bear said pop stars and drag queens are the same thing. Does he take his kid? Would he take his kid to a Cardi B concert? Curious.
We're myopic, zoned in because we are queer. It's an easy way to go after us. I don't.
This is a denialist, bro. He just denies everything that's against his agenda. It's very, very apparent. I mean, I see the conversation piece, right, when it comes to drag and pop stars, but like on the situation where drag queens are twerking, when drag queens are, grinding on a pole, when drag queens are doing these things, right? Pop stars are not doing that. When is Eric until Ariana Grande got super sexualized, like later on, she wasn't doing that. So you be more specific, and then we could talk, and then we could say, oh yeah, I don't want my kid going to see a Beyonce concert. Like, seeing it on TV versus seeing it in person, completely different things. So
I don't think most people that don't like drag shows or angry about drag shows actually care about drag shows or have ever even been to one. You know, I think when you go, you said majority. I've not been to all of the drag shows. I can't speak for the majority, but I've been to my fair share in New York and LA, like places where the queens turn out. They put on a show. It is not about being sexual. It's about being smart, funny.
I don't believe a single fucking word you say. Not a single word. I don't believe his interpretation of anything. So I would have to see the same thing.
Witty. They make their costumes. They do their makeup. It is art entertaining. I don't think they get enough respect for what they do.
And it's sad that drag is kind of being painted that way for everyone when there are a lot of people that are doing beautiful work. But what do you think when it does
I think people
cross the
who
line
are like
of being
inherently afraid of drag as an art form then go to the one thing that they can, which is like, oh, the sexualization of the minor. Like, but which I think, you know,
Such a dog whistle.
They're not taking down all the naked statues that are like all over Italy and like in the Catholic Church, like, you know what I mean, like naked babies. If you're gonna like say, well,
Italy.
none of the like sexualization of children and none of the inappropriateness, then you have to go after it all.
And I will get with you guys on that point where it is hyper-focused on the drag queens when it is a bigger conversation of what is acceptable and not acceptable for children, especially pop stars. When I've been to Beyonce's tour 4 times this year so far.
Lucky you.
And you need to go. While I'm there, I love the experience, I love the show, but I'm also fighting in my head being like a super big fan, but I'm like, okay, this is really inappropriate for children. But no one's talking about that because
it's Beyonce. Because it's Beyonce.
Yeah. There's so much footage out there of adult women with their minor daughters going to a Justin Bieber concert and being out of their minds about him being in any way sexual. They respond when he does a sexual thing. This is a norm. It's just that in this case, it's about queer people, and norms don't get to apply to us.
Right, and I think that just art in general has the potential to, you know, blur the lines of what's socially acceptable and what isn't. That's what makes it art. So it's important to remember that all forms of
It's also very different when you see footage of drag queens teaching kids how to twerk, right? It's very different when you see kids putting on drag, right? It's different because it's like it's more of a situation. The reason why people like, if Cardi B did the same thing, because we've seen it actually. We've seen an artist kind of twerk on a kid and everybody condemned her in general. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this in front of a kid? Right? If a kid goes to a stripper, like a strip show, we would condemn them as well. So the similarities, although I agree that there's more things that we should make sure that kids are not overly exposed to, right? I do agree to that. But at the same time, we do recognize that that doesn't excuse actions such as this as a norm. It doesn't.
Of art, and I speak on this on my platforms too. When I have kids, they're not going to Hooters. I'm sorry, I'm not taking them there. I'm also not taking them to a drag show, and I'm not going to take them to a Sam Smith concert either. Right. So, and that's not because that art is bad. It's because I'm not comfortable with my kids being there. But if the government is in the business
of question for you.
Yes.
You said that you feel like you maybe could have experienced something that was good for you by seeing drag when you were little.
Right.
So and then you just said you wouldn't take your kids to
because the majority of drag shows that I've seen, I wouldn't find appropriate. I'm not going to run the risk. I'm not saying that there isn't a drag show that would be good for a child. I never said that. I'm saying that from my experience going to drag shows, I'm not going to run the risk of taking my kid and putting them in an environment that I don't deem appropriate.
I mean,
yes,
we
absolutely.
have a responsibility to police our own community. If a drag queen comes out from backstage into a bar and someone has their child, that drag queen should be like, stop, whose child is this? Why is this child in this bar? Under 21? Excuse me, they're gonna lose their alcohol license, especially in California.
Although I do think that there are wonderful drag shows that are amazing for adults, also may not be appropriate for children, but it's not inherently the art form that determines that.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of drag shows happen in places that are 21 and up. So it's not as if there's a rash of kids being taken into bars and seeing. But I think it's really important to note that the argument about whether or not a certain art form is inappropriately sexual or not is a tale as old as time. I think drag is being targeted because it pings that part of people who aren't sure what's okay. Adults take their young kids to Hooters all the time. Adults show their kids R-rated movies all the time, but those are their personal choices. And here's the thing. It is not unknown what's developmentally appropriate. The American Psychological Association, the American Association of Pediatrics, there's tons of well-researched guidance on this. This is not an open question. There's no need for these laws, but also it's not accurate to say that most of them are sexualized, because how in the world would you be able to empirically prove that?
That's such a disingenuous thing to say. Like, this guy's going through all facts and numbers, but we also know standards, and nobody here said that this should be put into law. So I don't know what your point was when you said what you were saying.
Totally.
I would date a trans man.
This is Tina. She's a restless sleeper, but not for long, because this weekend at Haverty's.
Really? Really? Okay.
Every trans person has their own experience of what trans is. If that trans man still had downstairs, then sure. Because that's the reason I'm gay. I'm a gay man because I'm a male with male body parts that likes male body parts.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Would that change, let's say if you met someone and you were attracted to them based off of what they looked like in clothes, and then you found out that their genitalia didn't match what you had expected or assumed, would you still not be interested in them?
It would hurt, because I would be interested in them. That's happened before. I can be interested in a person, but at the end of the day, I'm gay. So if I go downstairs and there's nothing there, or there is a female body part, I can't perform.
So then you wouldn't date a trans man, would you? Trans man is woman transitioning to man.
Oh shit, see, it's so confusing.
Yeah, so it's like you wouldn't, because if they didn't.
Is trans man or trans woman?
Trans man.
Which is?
Woman transition to man. That's why it's trans man.
No.
Okay.
You can turn around if you want.
Okay, yeah, no.
Okay.
So, reset.
Never mind.
I think for myself, I've never had the opportunity, I would say the privilege. Personally, it is one of those things where, like, what I look for in a partner is really what they bring to the table in terms of, like, intellectual conversation and just the way they make me feel. It doesn't really matter what you have going on. If we have good chemistry up here, like, that's not gonna be a problem at all, and it shouldn't be a problem, and no one should really be conformed or confined to what they have in their pants.
I was dating someone and they were transgender and they didn't tell me, and we're like 2 months in, and we actually decided to actually do something. I don't think that's fair for me though, because you're not giving me the opportunity if I still want to continue, because that's important. So that's why I don't blame anyone or have any animosity if someone doesn't want to date a trans person, because they still have their preference. And if they are gay, it's not just gender that's important, it's also their sex that's important too. And we don't want to disregard sex as well and what their sexual identity is, because that is important to someone else.
I also think, just based on the idea that you're talking about with sex, there's so much more to sex than just penetration or sucking on something specific. I think that there's a lot of different ways to enjoy sex and being sexual with your partner.
But it's part of it.
I also think, for us to sit here and think about the trans experience is completely unfair because we don't go through it.
Oh my
and so
God,
for someone who is trans to think about
up, Barry. Oh my God, this whole I can't, bro. Liberals just make everything this. Oh, we can't, bro. We should feel bad. Blah 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 blah. Jesus.
About disclosure is safety. For me personally, I think that love is such a special thing, and to be able to find it in any capacity would be a gift. And I think to close yourself off from possibly meeting someone who you are physically attracted to because of what just is in their pants is really doing yourself a disservice.
You don't believe that. You're a fucking liar. Shut up. Shut up.
I think we all have a sexuality for a reason. That's not discounting the lives of trans people. Like, I think they have their rights. They should be alive. Like, that's totally fine. Respect to them. But I think we're, at least some of us here, are gay for a reason. Our sexuality is reduced to what's between the pants. That's literally the only reason I'm a gay man.
We're talking about like what's in someone's pants.
Yeah.
Would you date a trans woman who still had her penis?
I'd be open to it.
So would that make you still gay though, if she presents as a woman?
It would make me...
Make you bi with an exception?
Well, your definition of gay is defined by being attracted to
just be like, I just want, that would be a very, very feminine man.
When it comes to men, obviously there's what's in your
I would
pants,
be so
but
curious to
then
hear what they said
transitioning
after
to a
that.
man, they're still identified as a man and they still present that masculinity that most men, if you want to be honest, most cis men can't produce.
Right, yeah.
So if me wanting to date or open to dating a trans man, does that not make me gay?
I would say that you're bi with an attraction to masculinity.
Or pansexual?
These conversations are so tough for me because it's like, I truly believe that you love who you love and it doesn't matter. And we categorize things because that's natural for the brain, but there are nuances and there are exceptions. Honey, I'm as gay as the sun is hot, but I like, you know what? I like what I like, and I'm not gonna invalidate somebody else's sexuality by saying, oh, you're bigoted for not wanting to do this, because that, and it kind of goes back to our other discussion, where the TQ and then the LGB, sometimes those issues can intermingle and then cause other people to feel invalidated just because I don't necessarily want to date somebody with a vagina.
I find this conversation interesting because to me, I don't see the point in it. Because like, we can argue that someone who is a gay man will date a trans man. It's like, who cares? That's up to them. I know that we have different.
Thank you.
Right. I think it just sucks though that gay men are being called transphobic for not wanting to date a trans man.
Well,
I think that's a little too far.
I think we can all agree that's wrong.
That's
I don't think that's transphobic at all. If that's not your preference.
I don't think Barrett thinks that's wrong. I think he 100% thinks it's transphobic. That's what I think.
Or if that's not who you like, then that's fine.
Yeah,
Can't nobody get upset at you.
Agreed.
But I think it is one of those things where, like, you know, sometimes it is not what you say, but how you say it. You
That's
know,
fair, yeah.
I've gone to like gay clubs and trans people have been there, and you know, we're all supposed to be like under one umbrella. We're all supposed to, especially in a gay club, like you would think like, you know, everybody's just kind of hyping people up, but it's not the case where it's like, you know, you step in there, pumps on, you know, wearing a skirt and you have like 6 cis gay men eyeing you down or treating you differently all because you're transgender. So it's not even a situation of, oh, I don't like you because that's not my type, but it's the way you go about it.
That's fair.
I only didn't step up because I've never faced this. However, of all the kinds of men that I'm into, and I kind of am into a wide variety of men, my assumption is I don't think I'll be sexually satisfied if my partner doesn't have a penis.
That's it.
That's it.
And that's good for you. For you, that's fine.
For me.
For me, I have other plans.
LGBTQ topics should be taught in school.
Twisted Tea is a refreshing, hard.
I've come around on Connor, whatever. I don't remember his name. Conrad? Connor? He looks like a Conrad. He looks like a Connor. I don't know what his name is.
You want to sit in the middle?
I think age appropriate for sure.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's nuance. It's age and grade. That depends on that. But I mean, there's definitely times growing up when I was in the closet in middle school, I'm like, okay, we're taught men and women, they get together and then they have a baby or whatever, especially like 9th, 10th grade. But like for gay people, something that doesn't exist. We don't like women. So like, what is my experience? I'm not reading it in a book. I'm not seeing it anywhere. I'm having to run to the dark corners of the internet. I'm having to experience all these things that they shouldn't
Very
just
valid,
be going
very
through. We
valid.
should be teaching something at least. But
And it goes back to
age
the
and grade appropriate.
over-sexualization thing. It's like when people say are iffy about gay topics being brought up in school, it's like, oh, the sex. But it's like, no, like, right? Like, why can't we learn about wholesome relationships, hold them, or like, you know,
And just the
having good
history behind
credit,
it.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
Having good credit.
making good financial decisions, people of the same, like, just things that are so much bigger.
Well, yeah, and that's why I originally was hesitant to step forward, because there is a fine line. People are talking about the Don't Say Gay bill or the Parental Rights and Education bill in Florida, which was up to grade 3. It's important for kids to know that
Haven't they changed
Of
that
course
though?
he's saying
Yes.
something,
Have they
Barry.
changed it since
It
then?
goes up to
Okay, well
12th
then,
grade now.
Either way. Well, when it was originally up to grade 3, that's when I would say I agreed with it, right? Because
No.
either way, it's up to grade 3.
Yeah, this is 3rd grade, and they looked it up.
It's important for kids to know that two
Haven't
people.
they changed that though?
Yes.
Have they changed it since?
It
then?
goes up to
okay,
12th
well then,
grade now.
Either way,
I gotta fact check these guys. What is it called? Because I hate when people just be lying. Parental Rights and Education Act. Parental Rights and Education Act grades. You said they changed it. I'm trying to make them see the most up to the date. This is February 22nd, 2023. It says 3rd grade. I don't. This was updated February 2023. I don't know if that's what they said was true. I'm going to say cap because I don't feel like looking for
gay
it.
bill or the parental rights and education bill in Florida, which was up to grade 3. It's important for kids to know that too. And it was originally up to grade. The government's place to teach my future child about sexuality. Now, hear me out. This is why it's a gray area. When teachers open the discussion to young children about sexuality and inherent sexual attraction, it puts them in a position where they could step on the toes of parents. And that's what I don't agree with.
I totally understand where you're going with sexuality. I totally understand what you two said, age appropriate. I think when you're talking about sexuality, that's like sex, that's in terms of like sexual education, sex ed. That's literally what they teach in school. So that
right,
those
and I'm
types
not
of
for
talks.
that either, which is the point I was going to make.
Okay.
I don't think, I'm a conservative who favors small government. I don't think it's the government's place to teach anyone's kids about sex. And I know there are kids that may need to learn about it because their parents aren't good parents, but I don't think that exception makes the rule.
And with that's good for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's good for you, but it's taught. With the way the world is moving now and the way that the community is just so open and so expressive, and the child is gonna see regardless. So like he was saying, instead of going to, the dark web or, just looking stuff up on your own and having no guidance, if you're gonna teach somebody or if somebody's gonna learn it, you rather them learn the correct way.
I can totally get down with that too. You want to have parental rights in what they're saying. My whole point is that it has to be all or nothing. We can't keep straight sexuality and then
I agree. I agree.
I don't want all of the
Sexual education. I think you shouldn't teach I'm trying to think. What do I think? Okay. This is what I think. Personally, I don't think they're the same. Sorry, not sorry, but the importance of procreation is how human society will continue to exist. So, eventually they need to know about procreation because that is the circle of life. Gay people, lesbian people, trans people, they're not a part of that equation. They can live their life with the purpose of procreation, male, female. So at one instance, I agree that they should be treated similarly, but at another instance, I think procreation is one of the most important functions of human beings. So I'm trying to conceptualize how to make this work. And personally, I think you should teach procreation, teach the concept of procreation, but you don't need to go into the concept of and I think honestly, you don't need to go into the weeds of like STIs, STDs, how to wear a condom, sexuality, because I think kids will be able to find this out because you talk about procreation when it comes to animals, right? Dogs, cats. So I think you can do the same when it comes to people. And that's the furthest extent you can go. So I rationalized it. I did it.
Hey, girl.
Always me.
Sorpresa. I'm just kidding.
I was listening in, and Clarkson kind of made the point that the government really shouldn't be in the business of teaching your children about your sexuality. No one taught us how to be gay. Who taught you how to be gay? Anybody?
The
Was it
internet.
the internet? Okay. It would have Yeah.
My uncle actually, I didn't know he was gay.
So it was a family member.
Yes, I didn't know he was
so
gay,
for,
but.
for me, as a gay man who grew up with parents who were very, very prudish, they had no idea, and they didn't even want to have a conversation. I am that example that should have been taught at school, but I learned, I figured it out on my own, just like many of us ultimately do. I know as an individual, it would have helped me as someone in my own family, an uncle, a parent. For me, I think it's the government's job to start educating these parents, because the parents need to have these sensitive conversations with their children. The best metric for a child's success is the parental involvement. And what we're doing right now, where we're teaching the children about sexuality and completely not involving the parent, we're leading them down a road for psychological issues because they've got no support system at home. We're creating a school system that's supportive and a home system that they think is unsupportive. We live in 2023. Most of the people are very accepting. Parents are understanding, but parents have to know what's going on in their children's lives so that they can be prepared. And I think it's the school's responsibility to prepare those parents, not to have children have these conversations with parents, because children do not teach their parents.
How do you get parents involved when they don't support it though? Like, I have a lot of really good friends who are educators and they want the parents involved, but a lot of their parents are coming to school already queerphobic.
Right. See, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge for the schools. That it's not the school's job to overstep that unsupportive parent and then shelter that child, because now that child has created a two-world system where I feel safe here, but I don't feel safe at home, and then the state comes and takes the children, which is happening.
How do you feel about waivers? Like, how do you feel about schools saying, oh, we're going to teach your kid this, and the kid comes home with a waiver? Like, if they sign it, then you're okay with the school teaching it, but if the parent doesn't sign it, then they go in another room and the parent teaches it.
Yeah,
Are you
absolutely.
cool with something like that?
I would completely agree with that. Yeah.
I just keep thinking about it as you say that is, I have a friend who had a great life at home until his parents found out he was gay. And then they shut him out. They kicked him out of the house. They still haven't spoken to him. He's in his late 20s now. And he was unable to get in-state tuition in college because they would not help him fill out the FAFSA, which requires him to have their tax information. And so would it be great to live in a world where A, it's possible to reach all parents and educate them and change them from being bigoted? Great. Would it be great to be in a place where that is doable? Awesome. But you know, I was groomed by a teacher, and it was only possible because it was not okay for teachers to talk about being gay, except the one teacher who went out of his way to make his room a safe space. And because he was the only teacher and happened also, separately from being open, to be a pedophile, he was able to groom myself and others. And so unless and until kids feel like they can be completely safe wherever they are, and knowing that changing parents is kind of an impossible lift, to be frank, not making it mandatory to create safe spaces for LGBTQ kids in schools is begging for disappointment, begging for failure. And to your point about learning about being gay, the ways that I learned about being gay, especially from the internet, I'm almost 40, there's baggage from that I still carry with me.
100%.
And so if I had been comprehensively educated when I was a kid in school, my life would be meaningfully different today.
I think for me,
I respect Clarkson much more. Is that Clarkson? I think that's Clark. No. Other guy's Clarkson. Sorry. He just looks like a Connor. I respect him. Respect him much more. Barrett, not so much.
Easiest thing to look at is like where you have sex education, teen pregnancy goes down, right? Yes. Education is power. I think it would be something similar for queer people. Like if we had information about who we can be and how.
Is that true? Sex education brings down teen pregnancy? Is that true?
How we can exist in all these different ways, it would empower kids in a way that they should be empowered.
I don't know if that's a one-to-one result. I'd have to look.
Monogamous relationships are difficult to find in the gay community.
Right now, take advantage of a limited time offer on Disney+.
With the Wells...
It was a good episode. Very long, because I talk a lot. What's a good one, nonetheless.
I'm a step forward on this one.
There you go. I think it's difficult in today's day and age, and like just in general, like to find a monogamous relationship. You know, I started with experience at an earlier age. So I'm 22 now. I lost my virginity at 16. Me being 22, I know from all the experience with different partners and just having, you know, I guess my fun, I am looking for something with substance, you know? I'm at the age gap where a lot of, you know, people around my age, they want to have their fun. You know, they probably just lost their virginity 18, 19. Some people are losing their virginity now, which is fine, you know what I mean? So they want to experience life or hookup culture. And then there are some people who that's just what they want to do for the rest of their life. They don't want to be tied down. So it makes it very difficult because a lot of times even meeting someone, it's one of those things where they want their cake and eat it too, like, you know?
I think there's something to be said about a lot of gay men, and again, this is straight people do this too, but we're just talking about gay people that say they want monogamy, but they don't actually want it. They just want it for the person they're with, and that's a little shade to my ex. But anyways, no. But I think it has more to do with the fact that we are very focused on our pleasure a lot in our community, and we haven't really learned, not necessarily to repress it, because you shouldn't repress sexual desire, but we haven't really learned how to control it in situations that are particularly hard to do. Like if you're around somebody that you're extremely sexually attracted to, if you haven't, you know, taken the time to examine yourself and make sure your actions correlate with the way you want to live, then you're gonna cheat, or you're gonna need an open relationship because you just have no capability of doing anything otherwise.
I think we're still healing from the generational trauma that came from the AIDS epidemic. You know, I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to heal from that, and I do think that we have a big problem with substance abuse, sex addiction, and I think that that needs to be addressed as a community. And I think as we start to look at like why we are leaning into these things that are less productive for us on our like regular lives, we can start to realize maybe like this is part of that. I think whether it's, you know, monogamous or non-monogamous, it's a couple's choice to figure out what works best for them. I think we've become very married to the idea of marriage in general, where people are willing to get divorced and remarried and divorced and remarried, where it's like you're not really married to the person, you're married to the monogamy that comes with that marriage.
I hear a lot of gays complain about this, but then they're looking on Grindr for a long-term relationship. I don't know how you expect to do that, and who I have talked to, they're looking in the wrong places, it seems like.
It seems like there's a need to like have a monogamous relationship, and I think that's good because I have one, but like since divorce rates are so high, I wonder if it would be best if people did share each other, not like all the time, but it's like you date someone, maybe you try something else with someone else. I'm not saying that's the right way. I just don't know, because some monogamous relationships work and some don't. I don't know.
I think love involves sacrifice, and I think sacrificing your desire for somebody else for the person you're with is ultimately what makes your love grow deeper. It's very hard for me to see an open relationship and think you're not willing to just commit to one person and just not be with somebody else.
But is that a Christian idea? Is that a heteronormative
No,
idea?
No, it's just an
that's a
idea of
scientific
me.
idea, because as a student of science, the most stable bond is a pair bond, period.
Sure. But a pair bond for how long?
It can be forever. I mean, my pair bond, I'm expecting it to be forever.
Is there nuance in that though? Because even as straight couples, there's like, I mean, you get in the 40s and 50s, there's swingers everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we did not arrive at monogamy through evolution. It's a combination of some things, and there are benefits to pairing, but there are plenty of mammals in the wild that don't do lifelong pairing. One of the leading drivers of divorce is cheating, and it seems to me taking that off the table is a great way to prevent that one pitfall. Some of the happiest same-sex couples I know.
I will say this. Although I think it's the best route, obviously due to procreation, my assumption is it does not guarantee a life-long companionship without a lot of sacrifice. So I think it's a bigger commitment than people realize to be in a lifelong relationship with someone, because people lose interest. People stop caring. I think it's harder to stay in a lifelong single relationship, like with a single as in like lifelong monogamous relationship, than probably any type of relationship, which could be a good thing. Because I think you gain more out of a singular monogamous relationship than any other relationship. That's what I think.
Are in open relationships, and they make all kinds of other sacrifices for each other, making space for each other in other ways. I think we might be best served by surrendering that one of these is right and one of these is wrong, because we put each other and ourselves in a position of an expectation of, I should want this, or I should want that, I should be this, I should be that. And if that's inconsistent with what best serves us, that's a recipe for a failed relationship, regardless of whether or not it's supposed to be open or closed. You know, I just want to say that I really respect and appreciate all of you, and I even those of you that I disagree with vehemently, I see a lot of humanity in. And I also want to say, if I said or did anything that was offensive to anyone,
Girl,
I just
you're
want you to know,
fine.
I really do respect the shit out of you guys.
Yeah, you guys are all amazing. I'm happy to see our
Barrett does not respect anybody. He is. It started out with him. I've grown to. He's cool. Him. I'll be shocked if he has any remorse or
message,
apologies.
you know, even if we don't always agree. The best part is that we each get to say what we want to say, and that's going to
What
help
happened to the
move
camera?
our community forward. That's really what this is all about.
I definitely respect all humans. I just feel like you have a lot of energy and passion that I wish would be used.
See, he doesn't apologize. He thinks he's morally superior. I knew he was not going to apologize. He does not like you. That's why he said, I respect all humans.
Help move the needle for all of our community in a better way. I just get nervous that sometimes.
See, he's like, bro, why are you such a dick? Like, relax. That's what they're thinking right now.
Times in these red spaces, they will use people like you to push their agenda to harm one group
It's so annoying. He's so
of
annoying.
people, and then that will grow and grow and grow.
But I think they do that on both sides.
But who's to say that I'm not using them, you guys? Remember.
Okay, can we have that soundbite?
So annoying. Oh my god, I can't believe that was so annoying. That was really good though. Milano. I want to see capitalists versus communists. Mario's a winner for keeping his composure. Oh, that was Mario. Well, it's assaulted time and time again. Barrett should have been kicked out for refusing to let him speak and for flat. Yep, Barrett attack. We need all female version of this. Oh, facts. I agree. 100%. Both my uncles are gay, survived the AIDS epidemic. They both say that over-sexualizing the movie was the worst thing that could have happened. Shout out to you. Barrett was unbearable. I thought it was going to be the other guy, but Barrett became the worst one, bro. As a gay liberal, I was so embarrassed to have Barrett, another Barrett, bro. Alec and Barrett, bro. I like that the comment section is recognizing that liberals can be annoying as shit, bro. They can be like some of the worst people to converse with. Ryan and Barrett got really. So the other guy was Ryan. He looked like a Connor. Understand being emotional, but certain. I think Ryan came around. I don't think Barrett tried to save face at all. I think Barrett was a dick the entire time. Consider myself a liberal. Here I have to be on the side of the conservatives. The liberals showed hostile reactions. Oh, I thought they said they were intersex. I can't. Your opinion's invalid. As a European gay, I cannot help but wonder how this debate, or in my very important, will go if you put European gays versus American gays. Interesting. I'd be interested in that. Can't pause puberty. This was entertaining, 100%. Barrett and Ryan were actually privileged ones, feeling needs taught down. I think Ryan came around. I think Ryan became more respectable after his like temper tantrum. Yeah, Clarkson was cool. Yeah, we got to get one with lesbian. This was a fun episode. Initially, it was kind of annoying because fucking Barrett was annoying as shit. But overall, thought it was good. So, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to go watch football now. Y'all have a good one. Take care and peace.